And welcome to Creativity in Focus, a live video podcast where we interview an artist every single week. And this week is not different. I have a very special guest. But before we get started, just a few announcements. This is live for a reason. We love your interaction. So anytime you feel like to comment something or even ask a question to my guests, please do so. Wherever you're watching, there will be a comment box or even a chat box, either beside or below the video. That's the right space for you to submit your questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. The other thing is that if you're watching this on social media, so Facebook or anywhere else, do share this video and leave a comment or even a like, a heart, whatever is the social media that they provide you. Use that right at the beginning of the video while you're watching. Why? Because it tells the algorithms if they should be showing us or not. And we depend on that actually to get exposure to our podcast. And you know, our goal here is just to highlight artists and their art. So you're doing really good if when you share your comment, you send a heart. Now you can share this video anywhere. This is a content-only podcast, so we are not going to try to sell anything. So you're safe to share on any group that you belong to, either on Facebook, Google+, whatever you want. Because again, it not only helps create visibility for the podcast, but it may inspire somebody, right? So those are my announcements for now. And let's get started. My guest today is Sarah Scott, right? You were a fiber artist. Is that how you...
I would definitely call myself a fiber artist because I dabble in so many, well, I wouldn't say I dabble, I actually get into all, different areas of fiber art. So yeah, I definitely say fiber artist.
Okay, so I know that Sarah knits very well because she gave a class at Curious Mondo and the Pin Loom weaving. Yeah. But tell me a little bit more about the things you like to dabble or go deep into.
Well, things I dabble and go deep into. I enjoy quilting. Quilting is one of my biggest passions. I love quilting and sewing. I used to be a seamstress, and so I still do a lot of sewing, like costumes and whatnot. I've actually got a costume credit on a movie that had gone to Sundance.
Oh, really? And
it was an Asian name. It was a martial arts film.
Oh.
Ping Shaohan, that had gone to Sundance, and this was years ago when I was back in California. It was really interesting seeing that, and it was great working on that and getting that kind of experience. But I've also done a lot of other seamstressing for hire, like people who need bridesmaids dresses made or that kind of thing. And of course, I've made a lot of clothing like for myself or for my kids and that kind of thing. But I do a lot of costumes. I really enjoy making costumes.
Really?
I do. And I also do jewelry making. My mother-in-law makes jewelry, and so she had taught me how to do that. So I make jewelry.
With beads, or what do you use?
With beads. Instead of doing wire wrap, I prefer working with beads.
Yeah,
I don't have the tools to be able to do a lot of wire wrap. So even though it's very interesting, and someday I might get into that as well, but right now my mother-in-law has done a really good job of getting me very involved in jewelry making. Thank you. And I do cake decorating. I really enjoy that because I like baking.
Really?
I like baking.
And spinning?
And spinning, yes.
Wow.
If it's a fiber art, I probably do it. I do the pin loom weaving, knitting, crocheting, and spinning, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot.
That's so cool. Now, you do all this. Like even cake decorating, really?
Yeah. you see, you're like, impressive. I keep coming back to that thing.
Well, that went away a little bit of the fiber thing, and I say, whoa, cake, that's so cool. But you also raise how many kids?
I have 4 children.
4 children. You find time to do all this.
Well, that's because they leave for most of the day and go to school.
Yay!
So I'm here during school time.
That's funny. Now, from all these, so you start. Can I say you started as a seamstress, or was that the first one?
You know what? Probably when it came to my crafts in general, I would say that I started off as a fiber artist because when I was about 6 years old is when I picked up crocheting and knitting. So that's kind of where it started. And then around the same time, I started doing hand sewing because I wasn't old enough to use the sewing machine yet.
Oh, look at that.
So, but I learned to use the sewing machine in home ec when I was in 7th grade. And from there, it just kind of went from there. My grandmother was a seamstress. At one point, she had owned a shop, and my mother sewed all of our clothes for us and all of our costumes. I always had a hand-sewn dress on the first day of school. All of our costumes were made, and so then I just kind of continued on with that. It was a nice little thing to do on the side, and I enjoyed it. But now that's kind of off to the side because I'm all about quilting. If I'm on the sewing machine, I'm quilting.
Really, really?
Yes.
You like big panels or you make spreads?
Both. I will do either, I will work in small blocks or I will work in large panels. And then my second child is my crafting buddy. She likes to do all the same things that I do. So she's got her sewing machine right next to mine, and we'll work together. She knows how to use my machine too, so she'll get on there and use all the fancy stitches. And so I'm always impressed, and I'm always so grateful. I love having a crafting buddy.
Oh yeah, that's cool. And are you more of a traditional quilter?
Yes, very much. I know that there's, are you traditional or are you modern style? When you're in quilting circles, people will ask that all the time.
Yeah, so why don't you explain to us what that is?
Okay, modern style is when it is more geometric or possibly more industrial in the look. It's a very modern style. And then traditional is where you are getting a lot of stars and those kind of things that make it look like a pattern for a quilt you would have found maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and that kind of thing. So I very much like the traditional style. I like, a good limon star. I like, having the bear paw blocks and the log cabins, and I just really like those because they're just so cute. They're darling, and they're also often not that difficult to produce. So I really like the traditional style of quilting.
That is cool.
I do that a lot, yeah.
I used to quilt.
Really?
Like, I don't know, let's say maybe 20 years ago, I actually started the very first quilting guild in Brazil, the Brazilian quilting guild. There was an American one, and at some point we actually joined, but it was the first time.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and at that point, I don't know how it is now, but at that point, quilting in Brazil meant more the patchwork.
Yeah.
So putting the pieces together, create the log cabins and stuff like that. Not so much the quilting itself, the tiny stitches. But I had a friend from the American Guild. She's still my friend today. And she learned, her mother, I think, was not a Quaker. It was
was she Amish? Because there's an Amish style of quilting too.
Yes, but
it's
no,
really
Mennonite. Well, anyway,
that style,
one religion where her grandmother actually taught her how to do the quilting, and she had the most even tiny stitches you could think of. Yeah, unbelievable. And today she actually helps with the, when you sew bags for girls in Africa?
Yeah, I've done that
before.
So
she coordinates that in that city and sends tons of bags to Africa all the time. Yeah, Susie Lassie, she was amazing. She taught me a lot. So I used to like a lot to quilt, but then, I moved and everything, and it does require some space.
You go through different stages of your life too,
Very cool.
So
very cool. Now, are you self-taught in all your arts, or?
In some of them, yes, but in others, no. Like when I was learning to crochet and knit, my grandmother had taught me, and crocheting was a lot easier for me to stick with at the time simply because I was a small child. So it was easier for me to work with one hook than to work with 2 knitting needles. And so at the time, I kind of put knitting to the side and I just kept with crocheting. And so that is why I had kind of a strong foundation in how it is that yarn gets turned into a piece of fabric when you keep pulling loops through each other. So I already had that kind of a foundation, and then I came back to knitting later on in life, but I couldn't quite put it all together in my head. I was like, I know I've done this before, and I can't quite, what did I do before? Because it had been so long. And finally, after trying and I couldn't get it, I finally went to a yarn shop and took a course, and within the first half hour that she was teaching, she presented the part of the puzzle that I was missing, and I was like, oh, that's fine, I got it, that's great. And immediately I started designing right after that. So within the first couple of months of that, I was already starting to design. And then I was starting to teach very soon after that because I'd already had previous experience, but couldn't remember that one piece of the puzzle. And after that, everything just came into focus, and I was like, okay, great, that's fantastic. And also with sewing, because I hadn't been allowed to use the machine because I was little. Once I took home ec class, and I took a sewing class at school, and I actually got to use the machine. Then I became very proficient on the machine to do that. So, but like cake decorating, I just read a lot of books and I watched a lot of videos.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like to run with that too. Remember, this is an interactive podcast, so if you have any questions to Sarah, that's a great chance for you to ask her.
Yes, please do.
Wherever you're watching, there is either a comment or a chat, either below or beside the video. So put there and we'll get here. Actually, guest 310 has a comment. I have a quilt my grandmother made for me, and I sleep with it every night.
Oh, that's
Isn't that
good.
Cool?
Quilts are made to be used. So I like to hear when they're being used. And they should literally be loved to pieces. A gal had given me one of her handmade quilts. She made a quilt for my firstborn when she was a baby, and she said, by the time that she's 20, I expect to see this in tatters because it was really supposed to be used, and it is on its way. Trust me, the binding's coming off and everything, but she did a really good job on it, and I love seeing it loved to pieces. That's what a quilt should be, because it's made with love. It's made by hand by someone who really cares about you and gives it to you. So use it. Use it.
And all those designs, they all have meanings and
they do.
Stories. Do you know the one about the log cabin? Why it's always red in the center, or should be red in the center?
Wasn't that to indicate a light regarding the Underground Railroad, which cabin to go to for? If you see a particular light at a particular cabin, that's your next stop on the Underground Railroad.
Really?
Something like that.
Wow, that's
There's
cool.
an entire set of lore that goes on with the Underground Railroad during the 1800s.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
I know another story about the log cabin. Well, because in the pioneer time, right, the houses were small, and usually on the center of the house or the cabin is where you had the fireplace. So that it was also the place where the family would gather together. So that's why it is red, because it meant not only where the fire is, but where people get together.
And the heart of the home.
The heart of the home. Isn't that beautiful?
That is nice.
Now, Sarah, there is one side that I like very much to talk about, because I think it can inspire a lot of people. So you've been knitting now for how long?
Well, actually, I guess if you take by the time that I was 6, it's almost 40 years. But I really came back into knitting very strongly when I was in my mid-20s. So almost 20 years now.
And what attracts you to knitting?
I think I like the portability of it. I can take a project and throw it into my purse, and I can take it with me and work on it while I'm in the grocery store line. I can work on it while I'm in a waiting room. I can work on it if I'm in completely stopped traffic. I can work on it when I'm picking up a kid from school. So it's nice that I can have something that is portable. I like that. I think the other thing that draws a lot of people into it, or any of the fiber arts, is the tactile nature of it, and all the different ways that the different kinds of fibers feel. You know, when you have merino wool, which is like the highest grade of sheep wool there is, and it's so soft. And then you've got alpaca, which is even softer. And then you've got, you know, cashmere, you've got angora, you've got all these beautiful things. And then the natural feel of plant fibers like linen or cotton. It's wonderful. I really like the tactile nature of this particular art.
You actually become addicted to those fibers,
You really
right?
do. And one of the great things about the fiber arts in general is when you're around other fiber artists, you can just reach out and grab their project and feel it, and nobody thinks anything of it, because it is meant to be tactile. You're meant to feel everything.
You're meant to touch and feel it.
Yes, and I've even seen in knitting shops, they say, come in and feel our yarns. You know, that kind of thing.
Well, and that's another reason why people should be aware in their town, where there are fiber festivals and fiber shows, to go and do this, because as fun and as easy as it might be buying online, it's not the same thing when it comes to fiber and textiles as a whole.
It's really great to feel it.
Now, you know what's funny, because the other day we were having the party here, right? And so there was this instructor here that he has 2 Angora bunnies.
I already like him.
Yeah. So, you know Jenny. So she was here and she heard, and she went to him, so what do you do with their fiber, the hair? And he said, I throw it away. Don't do that! And she was on, and give me your address. I'll go there.
Thank you, Jenny. Jenny's a friend of mine as well, and
Yeah.
I know she'll spin it up. She spins prolifically. Oh my goodness.
Geneva Morris is asking, of the fiber arts, which is your favorite?
Definitely knitting.
Knitting.
I really enjoy doing all of them, but definitely knitting, probably because of the portability. I really enjoy spinning a lot, but I have to bring my whole wheel with me. I really enjoy weaving a lot, but I have quite a few items I've got to bring with me in order to work with my pin loom. I would need to bring a whole little case. And while it's not that much more than I'm bringing with my knitting, it still requires me to bring some more things, and there's a little bit more setup. But with my knitting, I can pick it right up off the passenger seat of the car and work on it while I'm waiting for a child to get out of school. So I really love, I can put it down and pick it up as needed.
And if the conversation is too boring in a restaurant, you can always go under
Just
the thing.
kind of be working on it. So
Ooh,
yeah.
uh-huh.
Da, 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 da. Yes, I bring it with me seriously
I
everywhere.
think portability is something that we need to consider nowadays. For me, that's important too. I do a lot of felting, but it's because all I need is a needle and a small foam. Because it's hard to find like 1 hour, 2 hours where I can be home in a specific place and do something. So for example, the spinning is something I struggle all the time because it does require me to be sitting on
You've
a
got to
place
sit
for a
and you've
certain
got to be
amount.
committed for a little while.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
try and do my spinning either after bedtime or while the kids are at school, because otherwise the whole
You
time
get
they're there, it's mom,
interrupted. Yeah.
mom, mom, and it's like, stop making me get up. I have a lap full of wool. Please stop me. I'm buried right now.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, true. Now, with the knitting, going back to the knitting, most people think they will knit something for themselves or to give, and sometimes they can't sell some items, right? I know a lady that makes only hats, right? Beanies, and she sells in fiber fairs. But you found other ways to generate income with that, right? Do you mind telling us?
Sure. I have done a lot of test knitting and sample knitting for various companies and various designers. Now, in that industry, sometimes you get paid in money, sometimes you get paid in product. And there is a company that I work for on the East Coast, and I get paid in product. And actually, I really like that. It's really fantastic. And a lot of times when you're doing that kind of work, they will ask you, do you want to get paid in cash, or do you want to get paid in product? And when I was asked that, I was like, product, thank you, I would like to be paid in yarn for this particular company that I worked for. Other times when I'm working for a company on a one-time basis, then I just go ahead and I get paid in cash. Or if I have a knitting client, a knitting student that I'm working with regularly, a lot of times I'll just get paid an hourly rate in cash. I have a knitting client that I currently work with, and she works in a particular business, so she and I simply trade services. I get a service from her and she gets a service from me. So sometimes it's a bartering method, but a lot of times you do get paid in cash if it's a professional company that's asked you to work with them.
Now, what I find interesting is that most yarn shops, usually the owner is a fiber artist themselves, quite common. I know of a awesome storyteller that she just opened a fantastic place in her town.
Oh, good.
And I just forgot the name, but her name is Kim. And so she invites people. So you know they are fiber artists. Now, why do they need other people creating samples for them?
Simply because there are not enough hours in the day. When you're in the middle of running a yarn
Yes.
shop, or when you're running a business, there just simply are not enough hours in the day. This company for which I work over on the East Coast, they do a lot of trunk shows or fiber fairs, so they're working the circuit, and there's not enough time at home to be able to produce enough of their own products, enough of their own display items, because at home, when they're not out on the circuit and they're back in their hometown, all the time is spent dyeing, because these are all hand-dyed yarns. It's spent dyeing and preparing the yarns for sale and preparing what you're going to take for the next sale or the next show. So there just is not enough time to be able to do it. So this company has multiple sample knitters all throughout. In fact, here in my area, from my own knitting guild, there are multiple sample knitters just in my knitting guild alone that work for this company, and we're all just happy as clams. We love it so much. As soon as we're done with one, we get an assignment for another one, and I really enjoy it.
And how does the assignment works? They send you, they give you a specific idea of whatever they want, or you just say, okay, I got this yarn, make something with that?
The owner, every time she contacts me, she actually specifically says, hey, check out this link and see what you think of this pattern. Would you like to do this one? So she gives me the option of if I think I can do this one. Also, if I have the time to do it, because she knows I'm busy. And so she's like, do you have time to work on this one for me? And so she'll send me the link and I'll go and I'll look up the pattern, because she is in cahoots with several designers. So she uses her yarn to produce their patterns, and then it helps to promote the designer, it helps to of the pattern, and it helps to promote the yarn company. And so it does that. However, we've got another designer that is in our knitting guild who does a lot of work with this particular yarn company, and sometimes she will just receive yarn and then come up with a pattern for it. Okay. So, but for me, for the sample knitters, it's often, here is this pattern, what do you think of it? You want to do this one? Great.
Fantastic.
And then they'll just send the yarn.
It's quite interesting because, first of all, by combining the yarn with the pattern, they're cross-selling that. So for them, they're generating more income with the same sale. And the importance of the samples, by the way, I think it's important noticing how important they are, because you go into a yarn shop and you see all those colors, all those type of, you kind of go overwhelmed mode very easy. And sometimes just by being there, you might even went in with an idea in your head, but you lose what you can do. Yeah. A sample is a door to a possibility.
It really is.
You look at the sample, oh my gosh, I want this.
I could do that, yes.
I could do that, exactly. I actually went to a local, it's local but in another city here the other day, where they had the person that makes the pattern, they brought her, well, I think she's local as well, and the person that dyes the yarn, and they brought her, I think, from New York, and they were doing the show inside the yarn shop together.
Yeah, that's the company I work with.
Oh, really?
Yes, I know exactly which trunk show you're talking about.
Well, and I went there just because, right? And again, don't knit much, but the moment I saw both of their work together, the amazing colors, I want to make this, I want to make this. Well, I did end up buying some yarn that I haven't touched because I don't knit, and the pattern was about knitting. But you just go, my gosh, I can make this, or I can, and how look, and the uniqueness, for example, of those types of yarns, that it's just fantastic.
It is,
so.
And you're right, a finished project is inspiration for others. So this yarn company that I work with, it's in New Jersey, but she does a lot of work in the New Jersey, New York area, and all up there in the East Coast, and she'll do a lot of the circuit there. She works the fiber fair circuit there, but she has a family member that lives here in our area, so she comes to visit her and to do trunk shows here, or to go to fiber fairs that are in this area. And one of the main designers that she works with that's here is from our guild. And so they'll often do trunk shows together. So because they collaborate so much on the stuff. One will design the patterns, the other one is providing the yarn, and it's very inspiring to see the same pattern show up in several different colors. It's fantastic. Wonderful.
It is.
It's wonderful.
It is. I want to talk about more about patterns, but Guest 260 saying, what kind of trends happen in the fiber art world, and what do you think are the stable art forms? Wow.
You know what? At different times of year, you're going to find different trends that are going along. Obviously, as you go into the colder season, you're going to see a trend that follows fuzzier yarns and definitely more wool. You know, you're going to see a lot more angoras, a lot more mohairs, and a lot more wool in general. As you go into the hotter seasons, as you go into spring and summer, you're going to encounter a lot more patterns that are written for bamboo yarn or cotton yarn or linen yarn, because obviously you want the yarn to coincide with the season, what you'll actually be able to wear and not, you know, die of a heat stroke or something. And so the trends often follow the season. However, it is the knitters that produce a lot of the trends, even more so than the actual yarn companies themselves, because the knitters are determining which colors are flying off the shelves. And I think you'll find that a lot of times the greens, blues, and purples are what seem to go off the shelves first, because those really tend to be the favorite colors of a large percentage of knitters. And then in the summertime, you get a lot more tropical colors that are flying off the shelves. You get a lot more of the coral or the yellow or the turquoise colors that are going off the shelves, like the pale turquoises and that. And so a lot of the trends are being determined by the knitters themselves and not always by the knitting companies, not always by the yarn companies.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Now she's asking, do you think what do you think are the stable art forms in this area?
Socks will never go out of style. Everyone is always going to knit socks. Everybody loves that. It's been going for hundreds of years, thousands of years actually, because we have even found socks that were knitted in ancient Egyptian times that are inside tombs. But socks have been going on for so long, and they're a necessity and they're fun.
I told you before, right? I never wore a knitted pair of socks.
Really?
Hint, hint. Yeah.
Maybe I need to fix that.
Never, never. I also think about talking about fiber arts in general, what's stable. I think really, I don't see any type of fiber art really dying. But I would think that knitting has reached a point that maybe other fiber arts haven't, which is we saw knitting going to a younger and a younger generation. So you have very famous groups now with very young people, right? And it also, gender-wise, it doesn't matter. You have tons of guys knitting today.
When you get into more metropolitan areas, there are a lot more men and young boys that are involved in the knitting groups, the social knitting groups.
So can we risk saying it's one of the most stable
I think it is. And actually, back in history, it was the men who did the knitting. A lot of it, what became what we're used to doing as knitting now, was something that the men mostly did. And so that's why you see a lot of old black and white photos where men are knitting, or they are doing knit style techniques in order to create their fishing nets, that kind of thing. So when you see these old black and white photos from way back when, it's the men that are doing the knitting. And so there were only certain kinds of items that the women would do the knitting for, like maybe a lace shawl, something like that. But
we
the men are very involved,
right? If it's going to,
if
especially
it's
crafts,
arts or
we say,
fiber arts,
it's a women's thing. Quilting, for example, I remember that in India, it's usually the man that quilt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had a friend that brought several from there, and they were gorgeous. Most of them were in black and white, by the way. But they are the ones that go and do the quilting.
Yeah.
So.
My own uncle, my grandmother's brother, was an incredible quilter. And when he passed away, I actually ended up inheriting quite a few of his sewing items. And a lot of his other items came to my grandma because she was a quilter as well. So a lot of his items came to her, and then I also got some of the items as well. So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's good not to have boxes, right? I think it's very good that some of these fiber arts, they are very fluid. They go, needle felting is also like that.
Yeah,
you have a ton of guys that do it. Now, I just forgot what I was going to ask.
Okay.
But the place that I told you about, Kim, is called The Makery. You really should check that out.
Okay, I will do. Oh, that's downtown.
No.
Oh,
she's not in Utah.
Oh, okay.
We
have something that it sounded like that name, but it's right here in our downtown area.
So this is a storyteller, a professional storyteller, Kim Wenthrop, and she's amazing as a storyteller.
Oh, wow.
And she has a passion. She knits a lot. Now she's into embroidery a lot. And she decided to create this space, but it has this new proposal. So we still give classes and get-togethers and stuff, but it just looks really, really cool.
Oh, I do need to look that up.
Geneva say, do you ever sell your pieces?
On occasion. And sometimes I do them as a commissioned work, and other times I will actually create several items to sell, but it's actually kind of a rare occasion for me. Everybody keeps saying, oh, you need an Etsy shop, you need an Etsy shop, and it's like, for me, I guess I look at it as I'm enjoying doing it so much as a hobby. If I made it a job, it would just be work, you know? And so I think I enjoy making it. The other thing is, and you'll hear this a lot in the fiber industry, you couldn't afford me. If you understood how many hours go into actually making something by hand, you'd never be able to afford it. And so that is why handmade items cost more, because it wasn't something that a machine made in a factory. This had to be made by hand. It took human hours. It took hours away from other things that needed to get done, other family time, other obligations, in order to finish producing this item. And so that's why handmade items are so highly prized, and that's why they have higher price tags, because of what they cost to make and what they cost in time to do. So I sometimes sell them, but for the most part, if you get an item from me, it's usually just because I gave it to you as a gift.
I think, do we have happening a mindset shift here? Because I know for a while, people were devaluing handmade items, because of course we were getting so much stuff from Asia that we thought, why am I going to pay this much for this if I can pay $1 here?
Exactly.
Have you seen a shift on that or not?
I am. I'm starting to see a shift where people are putting more importance on small businesses and the support of small businesses, specifically your own local small businesses and local artisans. And I think that a good case in point is how many farmers markets are showing up that spring up in all of the cities everywhere. Everyone's starting to have their own farmers market. And I realize that doesn't apply to crafts, but the way that it applies is that you are seeing this mindset of, I would rather support my local farmer than end up waiting for my food to be imported out of country. And so it's that same mindset. I want to support my local small businesses. I want to support my local artisans. And a lot of artisans are now starting to use local products. So they'll use the wool from the local sheep in order to produce their knitted items. And so I think we are seeing a shift in that. People are starting to get the idea that even though you can get stuff in our ready-made society, stuff comes from a factory so easily and it's very, very cheap. And I think that people are starting to understand the value of having something that's handmade.
I think the handmade, first of all, had the energy of that person that created
it does.
that. But with the buying local part, in some cases it's not even healthy if you buy outside. But there is the other side, that probably that person that is running either a farm with alpacas or a yarn shop or whatever it is, well, they are not only your neighbors, they might be going to school with your kids. And if you don't create a healthy society around you, you cannot complain about the big picture either, right?
Because you need a local rapport with your own community, and that breeds a global rapport in our global community.
Yes. So even though in times like now that we are going to the end of the year, and it's easy for you to shop online, and really, I have an online business with Curious Mondo, but I also think is this, yes, you can buy everything online, yes, it might be free shipping for everybody, but, right, what's the impact that you're creating by doing 100% of that online? You can mix that a little bit, what makes sense to you to buy online. But think about, for example, yarn. Not only you have the feeling of touching the piece, you're supporting really the local community, meaning, you know, people can afford to send their kids to do whatever they need to do. You keep everybody healthy. Now, we saw, you've been in this for quite a while, and you saw when the yarn shops start closing like crazy, right?
Yes.
What was the reason behind it?
You know, a lot of times it has to do with economy. When the economy overall is down, people aren't as likely to spend money on extras or what they look at as hobbies. It's like, I can live without my hobby. I need the necessities. So when the economy in general is down, I think you will see kind of a downturn in extras, in anything that is a luxury, anything that is an extra, anything that is a hobby. And that's unfortunate for us, because when you stop putting money out into the economy, out into retail, then it just brings the economy down more. It ends up being a cycle. So, and this isn't meant to be an economy lesson, but you know, that's generally how it works. You know, it just continues to breed this downward cycle in there. But I think that when it comes to a lot of crafters, it's their passion that is inside them, their tremendous love for this hobby. Some of us even say we're addicted to fill in the blank. We're addicted to knitting. We're addicted to spinning. And it makes us want to go ahead and find a little bit extra to put toward that. It's like, I really, really want to get a little bit more wool because I really, really want to do some spinning.
It would make
I
me
really
so
want to do
happy.
some knitting. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, but this yarn would make me so happy. And so I think that overall, it's in general the economy. When the general economy of the country goes down, then a lot of other extras get cut out.
Now, according to the news, the economy is fantastic right now. Do you think any chances of these shops coming back?
I think that a lot of times when a shop closes down, it's unlikely that the same owner is going to come back and reopen that same shop. And there are lots of reasons for that. They may have become involved in doing something else during the time that they had closed down. They may have involved themselves in more family issues. Maybe they have an aging parent that they are now taking care of. Maybe they're now at a stage of life where they're doing something else with children, or any number of things could keep them from being able to reopen. And there's always also the feeling of having been burnt once, and it makes you real gun shy to come back a second time. However, I really applaud those who come back and do it again and again. And I've seen the local yarn shops close down in my own area here and where I was in California in the Central Valley. And I hate seeing that because I want fiber to get out into the community.
Again, we said a few minutes ago, it's a tactile thing, and now you don't have the place to go and touch. You do have the fairs, but still the shops.
But that's like once a year, if you even have a fiber fair in your area. And for those of you who are here in the Salt Lake area, we do have a fiber fair here.
We do.
So don't miss it. It's Mother's Day weekend every year.
Yeah, and it's great. I actually traveled to the end of nowhere in Montana about a couple of months ago to go to a fiber festival, and I thought it was awesome. And when I was there, we were going through a non-paved road and everything, and I said, what on earth? Why did I have this idea? But once I got there, it was worth every moment of the trip.
It really is.
Yeah, I think if people come back or decide to open yarn shops today, what they have to have in mind is that they will have to behave on their business in a different way.
Yeah.
And not come with habits of 10 years ago, because that's not going to cut anymore.
And I think that the reason you see so much change all the time in the way businesses are run is basically because technology keeps moving forward. So technology is what keeps continuing to make the changes in businesses, all kinds of businesses.
True. And Jenny, talking about buying local, is saying, and it isn't all about the money.
It isn't. It isn't. It's about the feeling you have of supporting your local community. That's really what it is. And a lot of people are really starting to get that desire. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah. We need to save. There is the moment to save. We all need to be wise with the money.
It's good to be frugal.
Yes.
But when you can buy local, please do.
Don't go overboard on either side, right?
Moderation in all things.
Yeah, right. Regina Moore is saying, it's very sad that people don't realize all the time and cost that goes into handmade.
That's true. That's true.
And she also says our local farmers market has local artisans set up. We do have, we right now, just here in town, I think we have 4 or 5 of them. Right?
Oh, yes.
And at least 3 of them that I know for sure have artisans as well.
Yeah, it's becoming very popular to have artisans included in with a farmer's market. So it ends up kind of like a one-stop shopping place. So you can get your produce and you can get some really neat artistic items as well.
That's how I like it.
Yeah,
If I
I
go
like
to
it.
a
That's
farmer's
great.
market,
It makes it more interesting, you know?
Yeah.
So I like it that way.
Geneva, where do you find your inspiration to create?
Oh, my goodness, from all over. A lot of times, and I think you'll hear a lot of other fiber artists say this as well, I'll pick up a skein of yarn and I'll just kind of be looking at it, feeling it, kind of mulling over in my mind what it wants to be. And sometimes the yarn tells me what it wants to be. It will tell me I'm best as a sweater, or it will tell me I want to be a shawl, or I want to be a pair of socks, any, whatever it tells me. So sometimes the yarn will speak to me, and I think you'll find a lot of fiber artists will say that same thing. It spoke to me and it told me it wanted to be whatever. And a lot of wood turners will also say, this one told me it wanted to be such and such sculpture. This one told me it wanted to be a pen. It wanted to be a ring bowl. And so my uncle is a wood turner, and he does incredible work. And so I've seen him sit there and just stare at a piece of wood, waiting for it to talk to him. And then it turns into something beautiful because of the inspiration. For me, a lot of times it will come from the color and the feel of the yarn itself. It will tell me what it wants to be. Other times I get onto my favorite knitting website, and I'll just start scrolling through, and something will pop out at me. I'm like, that's what I'm going to make. And also at the same time, I know what yarn I've already got in my storage bins, and it's like, I know exactly which yarn I'm going to make with that too.
This thing about talking, all our mentors, they at some point they mentioned that. He told me what he wanted to be. I go to a wood carvers group, and it's really cool.
Wow.
And sometimes the guy comes and he has, I don't know, a piece of cottonwood. So it's just the bark, right? Just the bark. And sometimes they get together, 2 or 3 of them. I think there's a wise man here. Oh, I think here you have a fireplace and whatever. And you keep looking at the bark like, where?
Like, I don't see it. I'm telling you, different artists see different things in it.
Yes, it's just great.
It is.
Just going back a little bit to the patterns, that's something else that you provide, or you have done that before, right?
I have, yeah.
Is that something that somebody that just knows how to knit can start making and profiting for that, or do you think that's hard?
On like on Ravelry.com, that's the main knitting website that I use, and it is professional designers, but the vast majority of the people on there are just Joe Blow, somebody down the street that happens to be a knitter and designed a pattern and puts it on there. So it's not necessarily always professionally made, but it's by people that want to share what they have made, and they want you to be able to make that pattern too. So it's just a wonderful community of sharing. So not everything is always professional. Sometimes it's just the home knitter. And one of the things I like about that is that particular website welcomes everyone. People who are experts at designing, people who have just started designing and have maybe their very first pattern coming out for something very simple. It could just be maybe a baby hat, but they wanted to share it with others. And on that site, you can either find patterns that are for free or patterns that are for pay. And so it's actually a good way to bring in a little bit of supplemental income. I have designer friends that they sell their patterns on there and in other spots, and they make an extra income through that.
And it's not just for knitters there, right?
No, it's crocheters, it's weavers, it's spinners. It's for all fiber artists.
That's
so
cool.
yeah.
Regina Moore is saying that my clay talks to me.
That's exactly how it should.
Yeah, that's cool.
She must work with clay. Maybe she throws pots or something.
No, I think she's a sculptor. Tell me one thing. What keeps your creativity in focus?
Being around crafting materials. And it makes me keep thinking, all right, as soon as I'm done with this project that I know I've got to get done, I've got a deadline for it, I definitely want to get back to that. So I've already got in my mind tunnel vision toward this item that I know I want to work on next. And I think that constantly being around my other creative friends and attending my knitting guild meetings and going to the spinning guild, where that's spinners who spin yarn, and being around them, attending fiber fairs, when I'm around other people that are like-minded and do the same crafts I do, that really keeps me focused on the crafts that I enjoy.
I think that's very important because we are living in a moment that is very easy for us to isolate ourselves, with fooling ourselves that because we're scrolling a feed someplace, we are in connection with people. And so by participating in groups, we really see people and talk and see their challenge. You need
physical interaction with someone.
Yes, and it's not only about the knitting or the spinning, sometimes their life challenges as well, or yours. So you're not only exercising whatever craft or art do you like to make, but you're exercising being human and being selfless, in the sense of you stop to hear about other people's concerns about stuff, and we are losing a little bit of that, and that's not a healthy thing, right?
I think so. I think we've definitely lost a lot of the human contact. because and just like you said, we think we're in contact
Yeah.
with people. We fool ourselves into it simply because we're in contact with 100 different people on social media, and that's not actually the same.
No.
You know, talking to somebody on a text or, you know, online or something is not the same as actually having physical human contact. When you're actually in with them, you're a lot more apt to share something deeper or something that is really in the back of your mind weighing down on you if you're actually in that person's presence. And I think that a lot of people find that in crafting circles of any kind, crafters are extremely giving, very sympathetic, empathetic people. And if they perceive that you're having an issue, or you tell them that you're having an issue with something, whether it's with your craft or something that's in your personal life, they just rally around you and just bring you in. And I think that that's very common in a lot of crafting circles. You know, if you say, oh, I am completely out of alpaca, I've used it all up. Well, here, let me give you some more.
I have in my car.
Or that kind of thing. I got some in my car. Hold on. You know, or you're sitting there and you're all working along, and somebody will say, oh, who's got scissors? Because they're trying to cut some of their yarn or something, and everybody gets out their little accessories bag. Here you go. And that kind of thing. And I think it's very common in all sorts of crafting circles that people are just so giving and so loving. And especially when you're in, I've noticed this mostly in the fiber art simply because that's what I'm mostly involved in. And somebody will bring up an issue that they're having maybe in their personal life, and they're all just there knitting. It's like, honey, you just tell me everything. It's okay. And you get such wonderful support. And so I think that you really need that one-on-one human contact, because people wouldn't normally be apt to release that kind of information. If it was just online, they'll just keep it hidden in secret.
Yeah, true. And
Yeah.
we need that.
You
We
really,
that
really need
And
that.
it's so true. The other day I got a electric spinning wheel
Oh,
on Kickstarter.
yes.
Again, I don't
Yeah,
spin.
no, I think that's the same one I got. I got it too.
So I took to the spinning guild and I said, I got this and I don't know how to use it. And at least 4 people came and said, oh, I know you're busy. I can't stop by your place and help you.
Yeah.
And it's still in the box, but not because I didn't have offers, right?
Yes,
The
yes.
ball is on my court
Yes.
now, but they came in and said, I can go. And you say, wow, this person is willing to leave their home and spend part of their day teaching me something just because out of
Yeah.
goodwill. And
Some of us live so far away from each other in our spinning
Oh,
guild.
yes.
We live at all
Yes.
parts of this area. Some of us are not local to each other, and we're also willing to drive to each other and help out.
Yes.
So
But
it's a great
this brings
community.
back the fact that, you know, good people are everywhere. And
They
they
are.
are willing
They
to
are.
share. They're not just inside ourselves. The danger of just being here is that we see a lot of angriness out there, and we fool ourselves that we are in contact with people, and then we start making the wrong decisions
Yeah.
based on something that
I can
is not
I
even
can see
really
how that
real,
happens. I
right?
can see how that happens.
So, any final words?
Pick up a hobby.
Yes.
Start
Good
doing
point.
them, and right here on Curious Mondo is where you can learn any number of them.
True. True.
Yes, and you know what? Find something that really speaks to you. Find something that you love. Find something that your hands are going to enjoy doing, and really involve yourself in it. Allow yourself to love it. Be inspired, be empowered, be impassioned by this, and enjoy it. Life is to be enjoyed, so it's not meant to be a drudgery. Find something that you really enjoy doing.
And passion is so good.
It is. It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. So why not looking for something that you maybe think you like, but go explore a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
dive into that, because it's only going to bring you happiness.
Yes, absolutely.
With just some drops of frustrations when you make a mistake. But
when
then
you drop a stitch in your knitting, but that's okay because we can
okay.
fix it.
Good. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I hope you really enjoyed this. You know, Sarah is a fantastic, energetic person, so talented. She even does cake decorations. I didn't know that.
You're
about
still so
her.
surprised.
I thought I knew her.
I'm going to have to
but
bring
I
in a
didn't
cake
know
now.
that about her. And again, this video stays whatever you're watching, which means you can share with people. You know, you might have somebody that is really in a moment where they could use another hobby. They could get inspired right now. Well, share this video. It's that simple. It's whatever you are, it stays there. So share this video with other people. Do check all our past episodes. CreativityInFocus.com is the right spot. We have all the episodes there. We have amazing people that we have interviewed. And next Tuesday, we will be back with another amazing artist. So thank you very much for the privilege of your time. I'll see you back here next Tuesday.